everybody. This is Cassie with Business Uptrends. And our episode today, we have a special guest with us, Deb Porter. And I figured instead of me giving a long intro, Deb runs a business. And I'd love to maybe, Deb, just have you kind of introduce yourself and share what you do with your amazing business.
Sure. Thank you so much, Cassie. I appreciate you having me on your Uptrend show today. My business is Hold, Hearing Out Life Drama. And what we do is really simple and yet super profound. And that is we listen. For our business to business side, we do have two different plans for access. And in those plans, we have educational materials to help people develop their listening skills in life and in business. When you really begin to listen, you can change the culture of a business. And so this is what we're offering. The plans include our listening service as well as the educational modules, which are both in written, video, and audio form so that anyone can access them and get value.
Wow, that's really, and I use the word amazing, and I stand by that word because I think that listening is a skill that is so important, but underutilized, I would say. And I think what you're providing is super, super important. I think I want to help our audience here understand even more what that means. Like, just as a compare and contrast, when you're saying you're helping with listening, does that mean this is I don't know, psychotherapy or something along that lines, or how does that compare to actually going to some sort of counselor or therapist?
Absolutely. We are not trained therapists. We are not licensed. We are listeners. My background and training is quite extensive. However, we don't have that licensing, and so that's not how we're representing ourselves. But if you think for a moment, most of us were never taught how to listen. If you think about it in your life and our listeners that are joining us today, if you really stop and think, when was I ever taught how to listen? Most of us can't come up with we went through this course. Most of us come up with oh yeah, in kindergarten, I was told to sit down and be quiet all the time. But nobody showed us that there are specific active listening techniques that we can employ that will make our listening so much better.
That's great. What is like a tip you can give our audience about listening? Given what you said, that we're not taught to listen, what's something that we could take away from this and just start applying every day?
My very favorite thing to share is this particular thing, because if we could teach the world this, we would change the world. And it's so often people, if you're listening to somebody, they will go, and I don't know what to do. And most people who are listening will jump in, well, have you tried this? Or how about this? And they immediately start to fix or give advice. And what instead I believe will have a huge impact is if you just invite the other person and say, I really heard that you needed to say all that. Do you really want me to problem solve with you now? Or did you just need somebody to hold space and hear that?
Oh, wow.
And if we just do that, just that, it'll make a huge difference.
I absolutely love that. I very much relate to that. I'm sure a lot of folks that listen to this can too. I know I certainly have those moments where, it's just a stress reaction or a lot of things happening at once, and you just want to go to that person that you trust, and you just kind of want to get it out of your head and get that feeling out. But deep down, you kind of know how you're going to fix it or what you're going to do. You just really want that moment of empathy, I suppose, just to, feel better.
Mark Goulston, the author of the book Just Listen, he calls it experiencing the exhale, the
Okay.
Yeah, exactly that. And I really resonate with that in his book. And I think it's so true. When we're really heard, that allows us to get to that. And scientifically, it's proven that this actually helps. It lowers It lowers the chemicals in our brain, and it really helps us to focus.
Wow, that's great. I think that was going to be maybe even my next question. When someone walks away from maybe a session where they've, called you or someone on their team, on your team, and they've been able to have someone listen to them, what I was going to ask kind of how they benefit from that. Sounds like at least there's definitely a brain chemistry at work here, but anything else you'd like to add to that?
There's just a feeling of, oh my gosh, I feel so much better because you're not carrying it with you anymore. You've allowed it to move through, the emotions to move through, and there's just this sense of relief, the sense and when you clear that out, you really can focus better. Studies have shown that if we get emotionally hijacked, if we're flooded with all of this emotion, we can lose up to 40 IQ points. That's a
Oh my
lot.
goodness.
That's a lot of IQ points. I don't know about you, but I have that many extra floating around that I can just let go.
No.
So if we're distressed, like highly distressed, I mean, if someone gets upset at work, there you go. I mean, they're not able to think clearly. They're not able to make good decisions, and that impacts our productivity.
I see. Yeah, I know I need all of my IQ points, so I need to make sure I'm getting listened to at times. So it sounds to me like there's a huge value proposition here from a business perspective, from helping employees have some sort of outlet or safe space to be listened to then.
Yes, and our goal is to be available in the same day. So unlike a therapist where you might need to make an appointment and then wait for an extended period of time, depending on how quickly they might be able to get you in, we have pretty immediate availability. I've got several listeners trained, ready to come on board as soon as it starts to flow enough that I'm overwhelmed. Then we've got people ready to go so that it's super quick. And it's amazing. So many people that I've helped so far have said to me, I did not believe that 15 minutes was going to make a difference. And I feel amazing.
That's
That's
great.
that's the best thing for me. I love that. And it makes me so happy. And it's why I love to do what I do, because when I help people get there, there's no better feeling for me.
That's amazing. And such a needed service, and a little different than I think what people maybe think of when they're having those feelings. I'm curious, like, with how long you've been, let's see, I was trying to remember here. You've been in business a couple of years, like about 2 years, is that right?
July, we opened July of 21, so we're coming
Okay.
up on 2. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So how has, the market reacted to the business? How are you doing there?
So it's been really interesting trying to help people understand, number one, what we do because it's
Right.
so strange and different, and also to see the value. That's been our biggest challenge, and in fact the reason why I wanted to be on your podcast Uptrends, because I was like, maybe she'll have some thoughts for me
Yeah,
on how I can help people understand exactly what our impact is. um, it
absolutely.
it's challenging.
I can really see that from the perspective of, I do marketing as part of my business through Valenta. And also actually through actually have a marketing business for financial advisors as well. But Valenta does a lot of really great marketing services. And one thing that I know is it can be really challenging when you have a business that you need to educate on uh, as almost as part of the marketing. When you have something, let's say it's a product, you're selling, I don't know, coffee mugs. People know what a coffee mug is, and they're just going to look at the design and say, hey, I want it or I don't. But
Right.
this is really helping people understand what you're doing and how it's maybe different. So those definitely come with some marketing challenges, but yeah, absolutely. We can talk through some ideas for you on how to, continue your journey and help with, getting that recognition of what you're doing in the market.
I think it's particularly challenging not having the ROI data to hand businesses and say, here's the hard data. I have scientific data for certain to back us up.
Sure.
The 40 IQ points, you can go search Dr. Bruce Perry and he's got lots of research about that. But
Mhm.
it's not, this is my business. This is my research. This is the impact I can show. What I can say right now is this is, this will help.
Right.
And so I'm finding that strategy maybe not as effective as I'd like it to be.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Have you mostly been marketing towards other businesses or directly to people? I know you kind of do both, but I wondered what your focus is.
So all of our social media is focused B2C.
Okay.
And my strategy for B2B is currently affiliates. And
Okay.
so I'm looking for those connections with business consultants, HR, accountants, anybody that's going to be inside a business who can see the workings of it and
Sure.
understand that we could have a positive impact. So I'm looking to connect with those people and in the hopes that through doing that, we will then have a way in with the business. So that's my
That
current that's my current strategy.
that does make a lot of sense. I think one thing I was sort of thinking of in terms of your messaging, I think one thing that you touched on earlier was you were talking about the company culture.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think, a really big challenge that a lot of companies are having right now, especially in the wake of the pandemic and how the businesses have really had to adapt to um, increasing their work from home models for, well, at least for the types of jobs and positions that, working from home makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a huge impact on company culture from that perspective because, if you're not in person quite as much, you're losing a little bit of personal connection.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think even before the pandemic, um, there's been such a big movement, a really fantastic movement for increased diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And I think that what you're doing is just such a perfect fit with growing those types of programs that many businesses have. And I actually have found through some businesses that I've talked to that some of those programs get a little bit stalled. It's almost like we know it's good, we want to do it, it's important to our values as a business, but it's a little bit, how do you keep integrating it into your culture? And to me, this is a big piece of that how picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in some of that B2B messaging, some really great messaging copywriting or onto your, materials that you're using with your partners, I think really kind of bringing that element together. This is how you can go to the next level with your diversity, inclusion, and belonging programs. So I think that's something, not saying that you're not doing that, but if you haven't, I think that's definitely a consideration on the B2B side that could help you as you're kind of working with these different affiliates and centers of influence to be able to prepare them with, here's how it helps us. We know that our leadership team is committed to this, and this is kind of how we can do it. That's one thought I've had.
Mm-hmm. That's really good. I'll need to think about that a little bit more and how I can the copywriting. Even though I'm an English major, I write pretty well,
Yeah,
but hitting the right notes in terms of the business people so that they can incorporate it in a way that they're comfortable with. That part is challenging, I think.
I can imagine it is. There are unlike you, I kind of, I've gone to school, I have a degree, I can write, but am I a copywriter? It's such a different type of a way of writing where it's like a combination of persuasive with informative, and just kind of hitting that right note. So that is
Yeah.
that's definitely something that I think as business owners, I say this kind of across the board. Um, Sometimes that is an area where bringing in that expert, whether you want to use this, like Volento, for instance, we have this marketing team and we have copywriters. So that's an example of, you could bring in an expert to help you with that messaging versus sometimes trying to do it yourself. You're almost too close to it,
Yes.
so that you don't have that lens of looking at from a level of someone who doesn't understand it already. So when
Hmm.
you've got someone like a copywriter, you're kind of having to explain, okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm trying to convey. And they kind of think in a different way based on their training. So that's definitely, I would say, a recommendation and a place where I think it's personally money well spent on that type of contractor, or contracted service on that type of thing. Because I think in the end, it kind of will pay for itself. You'll get the ROI out of that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Good.
Let's see here. What else did I want to ask you? Um, I think another thing you were doing that I thought was a really great way for for your marketing. I noticed on your website that you're going to be speaking at a conference in, I think it looked like it was in March. What is the
Yes.
conference?
So the conference is Beyond Trauma. And it's very interesting, perhaps, to some people that I've chosen to speak on this at this particular conference because my business is not about trauma. We really, really believe that if someone has experienced trauma, they need therapy. It's 100% true. But the fact is, as soon as you go beyond the trauma, as soon as you've worked through the pieces that you need to in therapy, there's still drama in your life.
Yeah.
There's still aspects that come up. So I just felt it was very aligned. And I feel like I have a lot that I can speak to towards that. And from my personal experience, I believe I can hone in and really help in a very tangible way. So I'm very excited to speak that week. There will be replays. I love the fact that the person I'm aligning with, her name is Shannon Peel, and she is creating a digital book afterwards, which will include all of the replays, which is fabulous. Tons of resources going to be included in that. She's going to be selling the book separately after it's over for more than the tickets are. Right now, if probably this won't go live before February 3, but there's early bird ticket price now, and then it will go up to $25. But then the book itself will sell for $39 later. So anyway, I'm very excited about that, and I feel like being among other people who are also talking to an audience who's trying to grow beyond will be very beneficial.
That's fantastic. Is this online or in person?
It'll be online. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. So many of them are online now, which I love actually. It makes it really makes it a lot more accessible at times, to be able to not have to travel somewhere to
Yeah.
attend.
I also love it because there's going to be question and answer and it's live so that there will
Nice.
be the opportunity, even though it is online, there is an opportunity to interact. So if people come with questions and have specific things, we're going to engage with that, all of us, all of the
Sure.
presenters. So I like that too.
Well, a great idea, I think, for you once you have given this talk at this conference, hopefully they'll give you the rights to your portion, and maybe you can actually, one thing that I encourage people to do when you have this type of opportunity, take that audio and break it up into clips, and that'll be great. That'll help you on your social media for a while. You can break it up into, I'll show you, there's I don't know if you've seen audiograms, but it's a way that you can create these little snippets of audio. I'm like holding my hands down here. I'll hold it up here by the camera. You kind of have a little box, kind of where you would, like, if you share on Facebook or Instagram or something along those lines, it's in that same sort of sizing. And what it does is it takes your audio clip and it makes it visual. It gives you, like, it scrolls the word on the screen or something like that, or you can choose a couple of different ways. And that way you actually get to share the audio, but still get the attention as the person's scrolling, because they'll see the movement. It's like a video that goes along with it. So
Interesting.
I will, you know what I'll do for you as well as our listeners, when I post this episode, I'll put a link to how you do that. It's a free tool. It's nothing that you have to subscribe to. Well, you might have to subscribe, but I do think there's a free version.
I've heard of it, but I've not tried it. So yeah, I'll definitely take a look.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a good thing. You can break up your presentation and put it in snippets, and there you go.
That sounds great.
And I wanted to ask if you could share your website for everyone. I know folks will be wanting to take a look at it. And then
Of
I
course.
wanted to mention a couple of things I found really useful on it.
Sure. The website is www.hearingoutLifeDrama.com. I know it's long, but Hearing Out Life Drama, we can talk about it whole and it's short, sweet, and simple. But the Hearing Out Life Drama, I think, is memorable for people. So that's what we're using. Also,
Absolutely.
also, as soon as we started to look for websites and trying to come up with a name, we had vents and all that kind of. We're going to vent, and then we came up with air conditioning units, and we're like, no, no, no.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. That's yeah. Well, that's great. I spent some time on the website and just really thought it was, really well laid out. And I went to the blog section and saw several articles. I love that your blog article is really up to date. I know about others, but a lot of times I'll go to websites and the last blog article will be like a year ago or something. But it demonstrates to the folks visiting your site that you're a very active business. So I'm just kind of mentioning that it's great for you and great for any of our other listeners that are business owners or in charge of websites, keeping that content with a fresh and with up to date. Just make sure, besides all of the other benefits, we always talk about SEO and the ability to share it on social. It also just makes you look like you're super engaged, super active as a business. And that's what you want people to be thinking when they visit your site.
We do update that every week. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're pretty active with that. We felt it was just another way to give value. And it's especially written for the B2C. LinkedIn is where I hope to eventually start to write more articles directed towards that demographic. But on the website for sure, what people will find there is very much intended for value for the average Joe or Jane.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I did. I read your article about, I think it was one that was maybe towards the beginning of January, about caregivers and
Yes.
what the struggles caregivers go through. That's something a little near and dear to my heart. I actually used to have a nonprofit called the Caregivers Help Desk where I was a little focused on that with folks that care for others that have either dementia, Alzheimer's, or some sort of, memory loss type of challenges. And I think it just struck me and learning about that and trying to support people going through that, how isolating that can be. And I thought your article talked about how there's a lot of resources, but there's not a lot on the how. It's like,
Right.
here, do this, do this. Well, how do I do that? I
Exactly.
loved that because that really is so true.
Yeah, it really is. And ultimately, I don't know if we talked about this when we shared before, but I'll share with our listeners. My big dream is to get Holt flourishing and then to take the bulk, I mean, have a comfortable life, have a safe, free life. But then what I really want to do with all of the extra that abundant that I believe will come is I want to create a nonprofit that is specifically for caregivers, and it will be specifically intended so that how people can have help with the how. Um, so part of the reason behind Hold not giving advice is exactly because of that piece of caregiving in my own life. My ex-husband was very, very ill for 8 years, and I was his sole caregiver. And I have a very acute understanding of exactly how difficult that is.
Yeah.
So I want to make an impact, and I want it to be not only just for spousal caregivers, but for people who are helping a parent or a child or anybody that is so stressed out and beyond what they even believe they can do tomorrow. Those are the people I can't wait to do that. So anyway,
I love that. You can give me a call when you get there. I'd love to support you in that effort.
lovely. I will. I have a list of people. I'm keeping a list as people, because it's really interesting as I talk about that. People are like, yeah, I want to be part of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it speaks to so many people because, like you said, it's I think a lot of times people will hear the word caregiver and they'll automatically go to one type of, like, child care or elderly care, but honestly, there's so many different levels of it and different people. Like, as an example, I was a caregiver for my older sister.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of nuances. And I think the thing that I learned that really struck me was, especially it can be especially hard when maybe you didn't have the best relationship with the person that you are, taking on caregiving responsibilities for. So it can be that whole balance of, perhaps as a child, now you're taking care of a parent. Maybe there's been
Yes.
those challenges in your relationship, but now you're taking on the caregiver role. But it can bring up those, like, if you had some sort of traumatic experience, it can really bring up all those feelings too. So there's just such a huge, so many different challenges that come along.
Yeah.
So I think it's hugely needed.
Yeah.
So the other, no, I thought you touched on something a moment ago that I was going to just kind of mention as a suggestion as well. Sounds like you've already kind of got that going or in the works, which was around some B2B type articles or maybe white papers. Sounds like you're thinking about doing that through LinkedIn. And I would definitely think that's another method that could help address some of the challenges that you have with the messaging, where you can position yourself as a thought leader, and help educate on what you're doing. And then perhaps even on your website, maybe it's on a different section, maybe it's like a white paper section or something to that effect, where you can bring your B2B prospects to take a look. So that was another thought I had on just the educational messaging.
Yeah, I'm really, it's on my radar. I have some thoughts. Linda and I have a business partner, Linda, she and I write really well together. We have really great synergy. So we just need to sit down and we call it spitballing, spitball our ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the 14 modules that are in the access plans, those deal with things like listening to your clients, listening through misses and messes, listening in conflict, creating boundaries, those kinds of things. Speaking to be heard, we actually wrote one about that because we really understand that people also need to be able to say and feel safe about that. And how do you craft that message? How do you because there are some things that can be done. It's, listening is important, but also speaking. So we did write one module for some help about that. So anyway, creating some other B2B interesting titles that will get people's attention is definitely something I want to work on.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I love that direction, and I also think that you could even do some leadership type perspectives where you would want to maybe talk to leaders directly. How do I be a better listener? How do I ensure that my managers with large teams are listening to their employees? How do I know my employees feel heard? Things like that. I think are hugely of interest to leaders, especially transformational leaders who are very engaged and interested in the development of their employees. I think that could be a good type of not only a great tool for those reading it, but a good way for you to continue to build on your message and how it can have a really great impact.
I really believe that as a leader, the only person we can ever change is ourselves. And when we model that, when we act out of that center, when we're really clear about that and we show up the best way that we possibly can, and we don't expect to change others, but to simply interact with them with compassion and care,
Mm.
that's what makes the greatest impact. We do have an assessment in the access modules, but it's really interesting that you say that, like assessing for the whole. What I think is most important is assessing with yourself, because that's really where you can make the most impact. Thing just happened with my video. Sorry.
I love that. Yeah, that would make a fantastic piece, whether that's a white paper or even a short video. And I'll say that was my last suggestion was maybe a 1 minute explainer video on your website might be really fantastic. It could even be a little animated one. But I thought that might help with your explaining what the service is. Some people, you do a really great job of it on your website. Some for the folks that are like that kind of visual, it might help reach that type of audience. Just a thought.
It's a great idea. I actually have somebody I know that could do that, so I might reach out to her.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, she's great with animations.
Fantastic. Well, I think, let's see, we've been chatting for a while. Honestly, your business is so interesting to me. I could probably keep you here all day. But I do know that's probably, probably not a good idea, but I was thinking we're kind of close to wrapping things up. I wanted to just kind of give you one more opportunity though to share anything else that you think we haven't touched on or anything like that.
I'm super open if anybody has questions. The easiest way to contact me is through the website. There's a contact form that'll go directly to my email, which is info@hearingoutLifeDrama.com. And again, the website to find that is www.hearingoutLifeDrama.com. And we're on all the socials, so I even did TikTok.
Yeah, for everybody listening, what I'll do in the show notes, I'll put all of this information, the website, the social links, all of that good stuff, all there, so that you can find a way to reach out to Deb or check out her business. I think it's something everybody could probably use. So I just want to say thanks so much for coming on, Deb, and just think what you do is really fantastic.
Oh, thank you for the great conversation, Cassie. I appreciate your ideas so much. Thank you.
Well, great. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap this episode, and we'll look forward to talking with you next time.